Myles Garrett yesterday requested a trade from the Cleveland Browns. Now, Myles Garrett is an interesting piece to have, or he's an interesting player, no doubt about it. The only thing that scares me about Myles Garrett is his age. A little bit of an older player, 29 years old, still in the prime of his career, but for how long, I'm just not sure. When the Arizona Cardinals traded for Chandler Jones, if I'm not mistaken, he was 26 years old, 25 years old, right around there. You were getting all of his prime years and more. So it felt like it was the right thing to do. I've got to be honest with you guys. I don't know if I would trade multiple firsts for Myles Garrett. And I was looking at some of the potential trade packages for Myles Garrett, and it was like a first, a third. Sure, I would do that. I would trade a first-round pick and a third-round pick for Myles Garrett. Now, if I was every team, I wouldn't do that. And if I had my first pick of the litter, I'm still Team Max Crosby. I think the Arizona Cardinals need to make a viable run at that being one Max Crosby, given his age, given his ability to rush the passer, given the fact that he's 27 years old and Myles Garrett is 29. And I'd feel more comfortable giving up that draft compensation to do so. But if Max Crosby is not available and Myles Garrett is on the market, and you had an abysmal pass rush last year, it's just something that you got to make happen. And if you're Monty Ossenfort, you cannot continue to fumble when great players are available. This team needs a real juice on the defensive line. Myles Garrett is going to get traded, in my opinion. And the Arizona Cardinals need to be the first team in line. They have the money to pay him. They have the compensation to trade for him. And in a weak draft, I think this is the best year to go get a Myles Garrett. Because I don't think that this draft is generational or transformational like other drafts in the past have been. Myles Garrett is a player that is generational and transformational, even though he's a little bit older. Coming off a 14-sack season, if I'm not mistaken, for that being Myles Garrett. 14 sacks this year. That's a guy that you have to go get. The Cardinals had one player this year have 5 sacks. That was their leader in sacks. That cannot happen for any team that is looking to actually be viable. Myles Garrett is a player who second in the league in sacks this year, and at 29 years old and towards the end of next season will be 30. He is a player that can help transform this defense because Myles Garrett speeds up the clock of quarterbacks in the pocket. It makes them get rid of the ball just a little quicker. It makes them airmail a ball every now and then, skip a pass, and that makes everything easier for your corners, safeties, linebackers, that they know they don't have to defend someone for 6 seconds anymore. Instead, it's 2.5 seconds. And you're still going to have to get players around Myles Garrett. Maybe then you do go get a Josh Sweat. Maybe you go get a different player in free agency. But Myles Garrett, he is the first big market guy that has said, I want to trade. And the Arizona Cardinals, if they could add him, plus you add the connection to him and Kyler Murray at Texas A&M before Kyler Murray transferred to Oklahoma. It is a seamless fit that you feel like with a guy like Jonathan Gannon can put him in the best positions to succeed. Jonathan Gannon was getting pressure in some games with Dennis Gardeck and just a wish-wash of guys that you didn't think had any chance of being any sort of viable in the NFL. You combine Jonathan Gannon and Myles Garrett together, that just makes a lot of sense. And if Max Crosby's not available, who still remains my first choice, which should be, he's 27 years old, and if I'm going to give up significant draft compensation, I'd rather do it for the younger guy. But I'd give up a first and a third or a first and a fourth to go get Myles Garrett, who would completely transform your defense, who is a wrecking ball defensively, up there with TJ Watt and some of the best pass rushers in the NFL. And if you are the Arizona Cardinals, you just need to make that happen. You can't sit around on your hands and just pray that Myles Garrett falls to you or build through the draft. The Cardinals don't have another 2 years. Monty Ossenfort, Jonathan Gannon don't have another 2 years to wait for this team to develop. At some point, you kind of got to hit the fast forward button just a little bit. And if the Cardinals don't make the playoffs next year, and most of it's due to the fact that their defense is abysmal again with a defensive head coach, heads will roll. Heads will roll. I apologize. It's not up to me. I don't know how much better you would do than Gannon. But if it is bad again next year, for the third straight year, no pass rush, and Myles Garrett was available, and a couple of years ago, the kid from the Texans was available, the pass rusher out of Alabama whose name is escaping me right now, and Jonathan Greenyard was available, and Danielle Hunter was available, and you passed on all those guys, and once again, your defense failed to get a double-digit pass rusher, or even half of that, their highest guy had 5 sacks, then yeah, you deserve all the blame that comes to you. And as someone who has defended them up until this point, to, hey, build slow, build through the draft, it is a match made in heaven for a weak draft to give up a first and a third, a first and a fourth for Myles Garrett, especially for a team that is in dire need of a pass rusher. It's not just like you're going and getting a luxury guy just to get a luxury guy. He's a luxury player in a position that you desperately need. If you can't get a Max Crosby, and we know Micah Parsons is not going to be available, Myles Garrett is the next best thing. And I only say that because he's 29, and he'll be 30 by the end of next season. But can he still be viable for the next 3 years? Absolutely. And for me, that's enough to give up significant draft compensation to make it happen.